What's up, world? What's up, world? What's up, world? Welcome back to another episode of Just Grow It, the podcast. I'm your host, Big City Gardener. So today we're going to talk about how to divide perennials properly. Yeah, I don't think people realize this, but with our perennials, whenever we're growing a perennial, what eventually happens is, not with all perennials, okay? Some of them. What happens is the vigor of the plant declines. And once we notice that the plant is producing less flowers, it doesn't look as strong as it used to, that might mean that it is time for us to divide our perennials. So let's talk about the proper way to do that. All right, so here are some guidelines to dividing perennials. Number one, you want to divide your perennials on a cloudy or overcast day. All right, these are just tips before we get started on the actual steps. This is because if we were to do this work on a hot, sunny day, we could end up drying out or potentially harming our perennials. So if possible, get out there and do this early in the morning, or like I said, do this on any sort of overcast type of day. Tip number two, water your perennials prior to dividing them. Now, I know that may seem counterintuitive and people are like, no, if it's dry, it should be easier to pull it out of the ground. Look, man, that's not what you want to do. All right, just trust me on this one. Water your perennials prior to dividing them. As a matter of fact, if you could wait to divide your perennials until after it's rained for a day or two, the ground will be softer. It will be easier to remove your perennials. You will be able to divide them easier with less damage to the root system. So now, before we talk about how to divide perennials, let's talk about when we should divide the perennials. We want to make sure we are dividing our perennials when our plants are not flowering, when we either have only leaf growth or they're in their dormant state. This is so that the plant can focus on making roots as opposed to flowering and making roots at the same time. So it's the same basic concept whenever it comes to propagating anything. We want to make sure that the plant is in a vegetative state and not a flowering or reproductive state whenever we are going to divide them. Now, for fall blooming perennials, we are going to divide them in the springtime. This is because in the springtime, that is when the new growth will emerge. So it will be easier for us as gardeners to divide the perennials then. Since the plant is just reemerging in the spring, it will suffer less damage during this transplanting or dividing process. Also, since the plant is just reemerging in the spring, the plant will have more stored energy in the root system or in the root area, so it will help it recover and set new roots faster. So remember, fall blooming perennials are divided in the springtime. Now, on the other side of that, we are going to divide our spring and summer flowering perennials during the fall. Why is this? One, during the fall time, we usually have less gardening chores and less gardening things to do, so we can focus our time and our efforts on dividing our spring blooming perennials easier or more efficiently. In the fall time, after our spring blooming perennials have done their thing, it is easier to locate where we should be dividing the perennial root system at. Whenever we're dividing our spring blooming perennials, we also want to make sure that when we're doing this in the fall, we are allotting ourselves enough time. We need to give the plants 4 to 6 weeks to go ahead, recover, and to start setting new roots before our first freeze hits. Okay? So now that we've talked about when to divide our perennials, let's talk about how to do this properly. So we're going to divide our perennials in 5 steps. Step 1, use a fork, use a spade, use a shovel, whatever it may be, and dig up your perennials. The easiest way to make sure that I get the entire root system dug up is to go about a foot in each direction from the plant. That now will form the exterior of a circle that I can dig around the plant, and that way I will do less damage to the root zone. Step 2, lift the plant out of the soil and remove as much dirt and rocks as you can from the root zone. Step 3, separate this root mass into smaller masses. Now you can do this different ways. You could do this, one, by simply pulling the root mass apart into separate sections. 2, you can get a knife, or you could even use your shovel, and you could literally cut this root mass into separate sections. Or 3, for root masses that have gotten extremely large, you may need to stick a shovel or 2 shovels together in the middle and pull them apart from each other to help separate the root mass. Step 4, once we have separated our root masses, we need to make sure that each root mass that we have has a minimum of 3 vigorous shoots growing upwards. These 3 vigorous shoots will help ensure that the plant is strong enough to grow an entirely new root system in whatever pot we transplant it into. Step 5 is to either plant these plants into a pot container of some sort, or 2, keep them moist and shaded until we are ready to replant them. Now, you don't have to go directly into soil with our now divided perennials, even though that's what I do often. I know a lot of people who will wrap their perennial root system in a wet paper towel, put it in a plastic bag, and then store it in their fridge until they are ready to plant it in the springtime or whenever the proper planting time is for that perennial. So the choice is really up to you. It has a lot to do with the space that you have available to you and your plans for the perennials. So that's it for this episode. We now know how to properly divide our perennials. So what we can do now is everybody can go outside to their garden that has perennials in it, because I know that everybody has some kind of perennial in your garden, right? You listen to the other episodes where we say that perennials are the best thing that you can add to your garden. Good, perfect. So go outside to wherever your perennials are, go ahead and dig one up and divide it. And then give one of those divisions to a friend or somebody you see on the street. I don't know, but just spread the plant love to as many people as possible. That's it for today's episode, man. Thank you for tuning in. If you found this informative, you know what I need you to do. I need you to like it, subscribe to it, share it with as many people as possible. And that's it, man. Put this on in some headphones, go outside, and do what the shirt says. Just grow it. Until next time, you guys have a great day. Before I let you go, I need you to do more than one thing. First, I need you to like, comment, subscribe to the podcast. Second, I need you to tell a friend or 2 about the show if you enjoyed it. And if you have anybody you think I need to talk to, I should interview, send the name over, put it in the comments, or send me an email, igrow@BigCityGardener. And check me out, man, on Instagram and on all social media platforms, Big City Gardener. We out. Oh, almost forgot. Just grow it.